once you have achieved this state of emotional balance, once you have achieved this state of a zoomed out view, the second thing that now you need to do is communicate the problem. Talk to them and listen to them. A lot of times situations may not be how we're perceiving them to be. Reality isn't always as what it seems. And that's where we need to understand that perception can be deception at times. In order to make sure that what I'm seeing is in fact the reality, communicate this with the other person. And a lot of times we don't do that out of fear of it might unravel things, or it might turn into more problems, it might turn into a fight, it might turn into this or that. Generally, the rule that you should follow is to fight your battles at the right time. Because if you don't bring this up today, it's going to fester in your heart and remain there and continue to bother you. So don't just let things be, don't just ignore things. Remember, sabr isn't ignorance. Sabr and ignorance are two different things. Sabr lies once you've taken all the necessary precautions, and ignorance is just plain ignorance. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commands us, وَقَوْلُوا قَوْلًا سَدِيدًا, and speak to the people in a straight manner. Communicate how you're feeling and listen to them as well. In that pursuit, the first thing that you need to focus on is a positive outcome. So suppose you went home and you accidentally broke a plate, and now your mom's really upset. So rather than approaching the situation in a way, okay, oh, you always break these plates, why don't you break all of the other ones as well? Approach it in a way, okay, hey, I broke this. Tell me what can I do to ensure that this doesn't happen again. Your focus of the discussion should be on what we need to do in order to make sure this situation does not happen again, rather than being fixated on the past. The past is just a key tool that you need to use to focus on a better tomorrow. It is the future that is more important than the past, because what has happened has happened. And there's a very interesting hadith on this as well, where it is narrated by Abu Hurairah radhiyallahu anhu that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, the strong believer is better than and more beloved to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala than the weak believer. Although both are good, strive for that which will benefit you. Seek the help of Allah and do not feel helpless. So in a situation where you need to communicate, hey, this went wrong, this is how it made me feel, and this is what we need to do to ensure that this does not happen again. That discussion may be uncomfortable at times, that discussion may bring up more discussions at times, it may bring up more problems at times, but that's still a discussion that you need to have. You cannot ignore these discussions. And the hadith goes on to say, okay, if anything befalls you as an outcome of all of that discussion, as an outcome of all of that, if anything befalls you, do not say, if only I had done such and such. Okay, if only I didn't do that, if only this has happened, if only that had happened, if only I had done this, etc., etc. Rather say, قَدَرَ اللَّهُ وَمَا شَاءَ فَعَلَهُ. Allah has decreed, and whatever He wills, He does. For saying if opens the door to the deeds of Satan, because the aspect of, okay, had I done this, it creates scenarios in our imagination that aren't really real. It's all fiction, and it puts us into this world of fantasy that doesn't even exist. And we as Muslims need to stay grounded within our realities whenever we're dealing with conflict resolution, because essentially aligning our relationships in the best of manners is also a part of Sunnah. It's important because when you're talking to someone and you're listening to them, you might also have to compromise on areas that are important to you in order to give room to the other person. So you need to accommodate their point of view as well. There is one aspect to it. Don't compromise on areas where you know you cannot compromise on. So things that are must-have for you, don't compromise on them. Things that are good to have, maybe you can compromise on them, depending on the situation. And all of these things, there is no fixed rule, there is no fixed guideline on what you should do. Hey, do A, B, C, and D, and then life's good. because all of these situations differ person to person, situation to situation, even conflict to conflict at times. And I'll end this chapter with a saying of Hazrat Umar radhiyallahu anhu, that there is no goodness in people who don't give advice, and there is no goodness in people who don't like to be advised. So generally, a community that doesn't like to express their opinion and doesn't like it when others express their opinion, there is no goodness in them.